Welcome to the Apex Sunday podcast, hosted by myself, Robert Ross, John Dowsett, and Charlie Walker. Today we're talking about the Miami Grand Prix in Formula One. And guys, before we start about the actual race, we've had this Pinocchio break, 5 weeks. Very, very odd experience. So a lot has happened news-wise. Max and Lance went GT3 racing to not too successful, but that was for a variety of reasons, but they seem to really enjoy it. Alonso says the Honda engine vibration issue is over with and done, so that's nice to hear. Behrman said that Colapinto was at fault in Japan, which is interesting given that his team principal said there was no fault. But the biggest thing is the rule changes. So super clipping, to remind ourselves, the MG UK goes into harvest mode with when the throttle is at high energy. So when they're at the full throttle, the system started harvesting automatically, so they would lose acceleration and slow down. So the battery recharging is largely down to the ECU, not the driver. So that's where I understand, things out of your control. So the new rules, there's a max of 7 megajoules from 8 per lap during qualifying. So that encourages less harvesting. The MG UK power is now available at the start if your start is bad. And the super clipping power is increased from 350 watts to 250 kilowatts. So that reduces the involuntary power loss at the end of the straights. So the drivers seem to be a little bit happier. What are your guys' thoughts on these rules being adjusted? I'm not used to this. I kind of wonder about what Renault thinks about, giving Honda and possibly other manufacturers concessions to improve their engine when Renault didn't have that possibility. And then changing the rules on the fly is something, to this extent, very new to me. What are your guys' thoughts on this?
I agree with it. Look, I loved the passing. I loved what the previous setup. I mean, clearly you can see the difference now, and there's less passing today than there was in the previous.
Still a fair
races.
amount, though, right?
Still a fair amount.
Yeah.
But there was heat from everybody. There was heat
Mhm.
from absolutely everybody. We've never seen a change this big before in motorsport. If you decide that you're going to go from a 2-liter engine to a 1.5-liter engine, or you decide that you're going to, control ground effects or whatever it might be, that's a huge change. People are going to complain, but this is a totally different thing. And when you have F1 drivers coming out saying that, I did better. I enjoyed F2 and F3 more than I did driving Formula One. It kind of makes a statement.
Yeah.
Do I agree with it? Look, I'm not going to complain. If they're going to change to make everybody happy that are competing and running the teams, then to a certain degree, that's okay.
Charlie?
I guess to address your question about the Honda power plant and or the power unit and whether or not they should get special concessions. I know that wasn't it back in 2015, 16, they gave them concessions then when they were with McLaren, and they're doing it again now. I don't necessarily agree with that. It's, I am a Honda fan, but get your act together. And it just seems I don't think that Aston Martin was the team they should have gone to anyways. It's there was too much, with Newey. It just seemed like such a mixed bag. I guess
they've had 14 principals in 5 years. So I think there's some issues at the top at Aston Martin. Sorry, but go on.
No, I wonder if Lawrence Stroll is just a difficult guy to work for. He just he wants results.
You think? Yeah, a little bit of an oligarch, isn't he?
Yeah.
You have to say that Lance is in a unique position because he's been extremely vocal, but he's the kind of guy who's going to go, what are you going to do? Fire me? Right? Like he's in this position where he can actually say this kind of stuff. So,
but we can also look at that, Charlie, from what you're saying. And we want competitors. We don't want back markers. We don't want to. I mean, they've walked away from the old rule of if you're a percentage slower, you don't get to compete.
Right.
Because now they've got an iron lock on how many teams can race and how many cars can race, and they're not enough. Is in my mind, there should be more. There should be people not being able to be fast enough, so they just don't get to race. But the way they built it is, somebody like McLaren has less money, less testing time, less because they won the championship, and that is the way it should be. They should give the people that are struggling a leg up. And as soon as you start competing, it's my favorite thing in all of motorsport. In GT racing at the highest level for years, and touring car has been, if you're winning races, you get a weight penalty. And as soon as you're winning races, guess what? You don't get any more weight penalties, and it tightens up the field, and then you've got this wonderful experience. So I think they should give Honda a go. I think they should give Cadillac a go. I think they should give Audi a go. But that's just me.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, in MotoGP, we've seen Aprilia come up, right? When Ducati was dominating and Honda's getting better. And they have a concession system that is similar, where you're at the top, your testing is limited and so forth. You get more testing when you're at the bottom, all that kind of thing. So I like this, because I remember years ago they said, well, this new rule will make following other cars difficult, and we're stuck with it for 4 years. And I thought, well, why can't we change that? Why can't we have a dynamic adjustment to these kind of things? Now, I understand that given the people involved in the sport, there are a bunch of snakes basically at the top. So there's that kind of environment where maybe it's not going to work too well, because already there's been sort of a little block to Honda's ability to develop more. It's very vague news item saying it's temporarily blocked at the moment. They think it's Red Bull and Mercedes that are doing it. So, there's all these political nonsense basically that goes on in this sport. If you saw the Keanu Reeves documentary, the thing I got from that was like, these are a lot of horrible people running the sport.
The stakes are too huge. Of course they're going to be like that. It's the stake.
Yeah.
The stakes are massive. We're talking about just a stupid amount of money.
Yeah.
So it corrupts. Money corrupts.
Yeah,
That's what it's about.
Yeah.
I suppose also, though, Honda has proven that, you look at them the wrong way and they leave the sport.
Yeah.
And it's, I almost wonder if it's like, okay, we want to ease things a little bit for them, because they really want to get as many manufacturers into the sport as possible. And Honda is a big part of the series history. So, yeah, it is disappointing. I was hoping that Aston Martin Honda would be in a much better position than they are, but I don't know, maybe my expectation was too high. Maybe it was a bit naive, but
no, I was the same way, Charlie. I thought the exact same thing. I thought you throw Newey and Honda in there, and I'm not necessarily a Honda fan, but if you look at their history, they come into the sport, they dominate within a year to 2 years, and then they leave. And then they come back, and within 2 years they dominate, and then they leave, and that cycle recently got broken. Not this time in, the last time in, and it got broken. So where do we go from here? Has there been that quantum shift in the whole sport that it's so tight that they can't do that anymore? Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting that Domenicali comes out and says, there are people not really interested in, they don't care about megajoules and so forth, and we shouldn't let the manufacturers dictate. But this whole rule change was to get Audi in to the sport, and Honda agreed to, return as a supplier, because they didn't leave the sport, but they left giving the engine to Red Bull. Red Bull had to pay for it.
Yes.
But now Honda gives the engine to Aston Martin. But now Solomon is saying that there may be V8s back in 2030, 2031 with little electrical power and renewable fuel. So, and smaller cars and more nimble. Like, so this whole thrust for, you know, a return to more nimble, loud cars with renewable fuel, I think is an amazing opportunity to promote cars using renewable fuels, because electric
True.
infrastructure in North America currently, and it's probably a little bit better in Europe and certain countries, is just way behind China, which is electric country basically, like massive success electrical infrastructure. They have cars where you, instead of changing the gas, you pull up and takes your battery, puts another one in your and
Yes.
you're on, right? So all kinds of stuff like this. We're way behind that. We're not going to catch up anytime soon. But renewable fuel, we have an infrastructure in place, and perhaps the ICE engines can adapt to it. So I kind of think I'm kind of happy about this. If we can get the sport back to the core of racing, as I said, like, I know we had this argument about road relevancy, but I don't think people really care about, like, Charlie, you have a hybrid car, but you don't think about the battery too much. Like, oh, I better save it this time and all that. Like, it just assists the entire power of the car. And
Yeah, it's. I mean, I'm pretty mindful of it. Is that like you have a power gauge? I'm always watching the power gauge to get as much out of it as I can. But I don't know. To your point, and maybe to play devil's advocate, I don't think Suleiman will have much of an influence on what direction they head. Anyways, it's what Audi and what Honda and what Mercedes. It's what they want to do. It's all return on investment, and if
Liberty Media.
yeah,
yeah,
he apparently claims there's some sort of rule where they can't dictate it at the time, but yeah, I am a bit skeptical as well. But I wonder about, like, how are the companies seeing the reaction to these new rules, and there's a lot of negativity. I wonder how they'll respond to that. And again, to market your car, just being in Formula One is enough. You don't have to say we also have great hybrid power. The hybrid power will still be there. It just seems like a win-win for me. And this sort of pushing, look, we're using 50% electric. Like, who cares about that? Like, in the grand scheme of thing, I'm sure there are some fans that do, but most fans, I imagine, don't care at all. But we'll see where it goes.
Well, you nailed it. You nailed it, because at the end of the race, like every race over the past how many years, there's, vote for your driver of the day, and who do we see up there every time, no matter how poorly or well he does, is Max Verstappen.
Max.
I mean, I looked
Yeah.
at that, I was just laughing my arse off. I mean, you take a look at there, like 10 other drivers, 5 other drivers minimally that I put ahead of him, but meanwhile he's either number 1 or number 2. And so it's the fan base, right? You have to please the fan base, and that's what Liberty Media is going to do.
A lot of Dutch people with their phones there going nuts.
Yeah, it's so that's an emphasis on the driver. That's where the driver captures the imagination of the fans, perhaps a bit more than the manufacturer of the car. Because there's this threat of Max leaving. He's so displeased with the rules. It's the same with MotoGP. When Marquez crashed out of Jerez, apparently viewership dropped. Like, I don't understand this. Why are you not a fan of the sport? I understand being fans of certain drivers. I like certain drivers more than others, but I'm a fan of the sport itself. The drivers come and go. The manufacturers come and go. The sport is.
Well, we're going to lose listeners now because you're saying that. It's really evident that you have to look at it from a marketing standpoint, and who have they created as the demographic, and the demographic that they want are the Lando Norris fans, or the Max Verstappen fans, or the Kimi Antonelli fans, or the whatever. And that's what they want, because that's going to suck people in, because there's drama. And then there are people like us that are, I spent the day wrenching my car. It's like I'm into cars. I'm into racing, and big way, and it's all about the whole picture. It's not just
Yeah.
what he had for breakfast last night, or is he dating Kim Kardashian? It's
Yeah.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
see
I mean,
these,
that's,
that all this footage of LeClerc getting out of his Ferrari Persang or whatever, that SUV with
Yeah, yeah.
his little dog Leo or whatever, and I'm thinking this is so like. Can you imagine a guy like Graham Hill walking around with this little toy dog? It's silly.
yeah.
Yeah, or for
Yeah.
that matter, can you imagine Leclerc getting up on a table wearing a dress and makeup like Graham Hill did,
But
and making everybody laugh?
yeah, I suppose a different type of fun, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah. It's just I don't watch like the pre-race or the post-race.
No,
I do a little bit for some interviews, and I came across the pre-race grid walk for Miami, and I watched it for about 5 seconds when Martin Brundle went up to someone I don't know and said, "Say hello to all my fans." I guess he was a musician of some sort. Um, so there is that. Liberty Media has definitely increased that sort of look at the celebrities at this event kind of thing, you know. Whereas I usually get more interested when other drivers or riders are at events, like Kimi Antonelli is at Valentino Rossi's
Yeah.
ranch, what's his name? Lando Norris showed up MotoGP to watch Valentino's race. These kind of
And
cross
Alonso was there,
references.
and yeah.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
But you know, some celebrity liking F1, who cares? But that's just, it's funny that we've all been involved in creating marketing materials for companies, and we all generally don't like marketing. So, or marketing's okay, but it's some of it, the nature of it is like Charlie said, it's silly at times. So,
I love
what
the
do we have?
creative part. I love the fact, but I mean, I enjoyed marketing, and I enjoyed it because there's this lovely, very rare thing in the business world of a combination of creativity and pure numbers, and
Right.
you can't mess with that. You can't screw with it. You've got to have both of them working together.
Mm.
And working with you, Rob, you're one of the few people I know that does both exceedingly well. And Charlie, we
Right.
worked for a short period of time, and same thing. We had some great creative sessions together. But
Mhm.
Yeah.
going back to this whole celebrity thing and the pre-show and the post-show, I love watching the tech stuff on F1 TV. I mean,
Yeah.
Sam is just
He's great.
phenomenal. I mean,
Yeah.
I watched his episode or his segment, which was saying they don't want me to talk this long, but I'm just going to keep talking till they cut me off. And normally they're 8 or 10 minutes long, and he went for 24 minutes, and then
Right.
in the middle of his sentence it just went black. But he is saying there's more upgrades at this
Yeah.
race than there ever has been before, and it was fascinating seeing how teams had done things to copy other teams. That they come out with that exhaust system on that everybody adapted to a certain way of restricting or blowing exhaust
And
onto the
Macarena wing too, right?
yeah. I mean, if it was so incredible seeing the difference between that Red Bull wing popping open beside the McLaren, and the gap on that Red Bull looked like it was didn't even have a wing. I mean, it was just this huge gap, and meanwhile the
Yeah.
McLaren's got like this little yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
So that's going to move the elements, right? They're going to start moving the elements farther apart, so they can do that. I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is it just Ferrari and Red Bull now that have that
I think
the flip wing? The
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
At the moment, yeah. But I don't know. I just think some of these rules are just a bit too complicated for people to really get into and so forth. So before we go on to the race itself, I want to bring up in that spirit, I want to hear everyone's first time they saw a Formula One car live. So for me, I think it was 93. Senna was the first car I saw, the McLaren with the Marlboro sponsorship. And what struck me was obviously the sound was out of this world. It's a sound that you want to share with everyone, even if they're not motorsports fans, just to like can you believe this this sound? Um, and the Marlboro Red that appeared on TV was pink live because of video at the time would translate it to red so it show up properly on the television. And his helmet was just this really bright yellow with the green, and the car was nice and small, and you could see it skirting around, and it was like a big advanced go-kart. And I think the cars today are just really a lot bigger. They look a bit better now, but just that the sound, the smell, the movement, it was just extraordinary. And you miss that with television. You get to some sense of speed, but you don't get that big sense of the raw power of the cars and how difficult it is to race these cars. So unfortunately, the second time I went back to Montreal, they had covered the stands that you could see through to the track with advertising, so you couldn't see through. And so I got a really bad taste in my mouth about the way they treated fans at that point. But anyways, Charlie, what's your first time you saw an F1 car? And was it with me, or did you see one before that?
I think it was. I think the very first car I ever saw was either Johnny Herbert or someone like Zanardi. I think Zanardi was driving for Lotus at that point, or Pedro Lamy or someone like that, 93. Right. They were coming in, the car was coming into the chicane, and I just got a glimpse of that Lotus. But it was like Lotus in quote, quotation marks, because by that time they'd already started to kind of their decline. But the thing that really stood out, and I might have mentioned this to you maybe off camera previously, was at the Champions Corner. And and Rob, I think it was the time you and I were together. I know it was with your friends and mine, Russ and John Paul that we used to go with. It was at the Champions Corner, and it was a Scuderia Italia car. It was kind of neat because that year it was Michele Alboreto and Luca Badoer, and it had this flame Chesterfield. It was like a Lola chassis. I think it had a Ford engine. I'm not sure. But Badoer drove into the chicane and lost it and spun right around.
And I remember that.
But you were making that analogy, the go-kart. And to me, it was Badoer just dropped the clutch and spun it right around like it was a go-kart. And it just so cool. And that was the time when I was watching it live and sort of thinking, wow, this is neat.
And John, I know you're going to beat us out when you first saw one.
That was 55 years ago. So I can't remember who the first what the first car was, but I remember exactly where it was, and it was in the chute between corner 3 and 4 in the outfield with my father. I was a young boy and a huge Graham Hill fan, a Bruce McLaren fan, Ronnie Peterson fan, and there were support races, and this pink Mini came around in the lead in a race of GT cars, beating Ford Galaxies and all kinds of wild GT cars, and it was a woman and a Mini just driving the wheels off the thing. And then when the F1 cars came out, I'd had a whiff of the tires. I'd had a whiff of the oil and the unburnt gas coming out of the tailpipe, which smelt pretty amazing, very, very distinctive. But then when the F1 cars came out, which were it just stopped me dead, because I'd been a fan for a number of years, an enthusiast, I should say, for a number of years, reading everything that I could get my hands on. And it was the distinct difference between driving styles of Jackie Stewart and Francois Sever and the Tyrrell, just driving brilliantly smoothly coming out of 3 and going down the chute to 4, and you could hear them downshift to hit the hairpin when they're out of sights. And then there were people like Ronnie Peterson who would come around 3 with the back end out and to rotate the car, and in his Matra with it, that made a sound that was just mind-boggling. And then they were all Ford Cosworths except for the BRM, the Matra, and the Ferrari.
Right.
And when they went up the back straight, which is what, probably a mile and a half away,
Is that Mosport?
you could hear the screaming of those 12 cylinders with the little wee tiny pistons, at God knows what RPM, but the sound was just, and still to this day, one of my favorite sounds of race cars, other than maybe the Mazda, but we'll skip that. Mario Andretti was there. There was Henry Pescalero. There was George Eaton. It was just this incredible field.
And you've been to like a modern F1 race. Are the engines, were they louder or around the same? I know they're higher pitched.
The later ones are higher pitched, and of course, since most of them were Ford Cosworths. Sorry, Cosworths. I'm not going to say Ford Cosworth. Ford paid for it. It was more of a bassy rumble in them in a V8 than any of the screaming engines that we've heard in the current era.
Well, they were larger engines, right? So they didn't have to have
3.5 liter.
Tiny
oh my
pistons.
God, did they sound good? Oh my God, did they sound good? Yeah, and no turbos, right? So it's that was phenomenal. I sort of twitched thinking about it. And then in that era, they shifted between Mosport and Mont Tremblant every year for the Canadian GP. So I missed 72, but I went back in 73 with my father again. And it's just, then I'm sunk. It's like that and Can-Am races. The early Can-Am races were just, or mid Can-Am races, I guess, because it started in the mid 60s. I didn't see the first races. Right. Phenomenal.
Yeah, it's
would that have been just before Francois Sever passed away? Like, did they go to
in 73? I saw his last race, and then he was
so they would have gone to Watkins Glen after that, and that would have been his last run, I guess.
Right. He was decapitated in that one. Yeah.
That was incredibly sad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Jackie Stewart said he was definitely a world champion. That he was just as fast, if not faster. He said probably faster than I am. Definitely team orders in Tyrrell.
Yeah, it's the other thing about this whole thing is like going to Canada's the next race, but going there is like to see the prices are gigantic. Like it costs a lot of money to see an F1 race these days.
Everywhere.
Yeah,
no
so I don't even think about it. It's just not worth that kind of money.
It is worth that kind of money. It is worth that kind of money. Not year after year after year after year. I was talking to my partner and I said, where do you want to go see a race? And she said, I don't know. Where do you want to go? And I was thinking, well, I'd love to go to Spa. I mean, Spa would just be phenomenal. I'd love to see them race at the ring and go to the ring, but it's, where am I going to go? England. I mean, that's where it's what it's all about, right? That's where everybody is. I don't know.
All right. So for the race, qualifying, I don't really find that much entertaining for some reason. I don't know if I used to enjoy it. It's good that Kimi got another pole. I'm not super into the sprint races. It just seems to disrupt the entire weekend. You got any thoughts on qualifying from you guys?
It was a good session.
Yeah, you enjoyed it?
I did. I mean, the only one that I love is Monaco for qualifying, because it's so important that they take it very seriously. There were some sad moments, but it was good. It's good to see them firing on all cylinders.
I don't know. There was a fairly big change between the sprint, the form of like the McLarens and Max all of a sudden found speed in qualifying. I guess to get second on the road, just next to Kimi for pole position. So that I guess they find something between sprint and qualifying. I mean, it was just an afternoon, really. But it was nice to see. You got a couple teams that are like McLaren's coming up again. and Ferrari, they just that I mean that turbo they got that launches them off the line, which is the race, which is something different. But yeah, the qualifying was interesting. It was, as I said, it was nice to see that Red Bull pulled up a little further. George is a little bit off, but
is he, or is Kimi just totally on?
It might be, yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about Kimi in a moment. Yeah, I think it's like in MotoGP, they use the sprint to improve for the race. So I think on F1, when they have a sprint, they always use the information to improve whatever they can for the second qualifying in the race. And the temperature of the track changed quite a lot, at least for the race. But yeah, like the sprint qualifying just doesn't interest me that much. I'm more interested in the race qualifying for some reason. But anyways, and the sprint itself, compared to the race, I didn't really care for the sprint. I have basically nothing to say about the sprint. What about you guys?
I said before though that I'd rather it was just a conventional race weekend. I know that Liberty wants to give more value or somehow draw in more viewers, but I just find it a bit extraneous. But yeah,
not me. As always, Rob knows this. I'm a big fan of sprints because there's no pit stops. There's just go out and do what you can to try and win, and do whatever you can to try and win. And there are no outside forces like pit stops and undercuts and overcuts and this tire versus that tire. I really enjoy them for that reason, because it's the only thing that gives me a true measure of one driver against another.
And so, did you enjoy this one?
It was okay. I mean, I don't like street circuits, so yeah. the whole event didn't do much for me because I'm not a big fan of street circuits.
Just gonna say, this circuit it's mind-numbingly boring and bad. What do you guys think of the circuit? I like some street circuits can be good, but this one, I mean, it shows the speed of the cars, but other than that, I just don't like the layout.
And no
that chicane complex before that long back straight is just so
out of place.
The cars look so awkward going through there, and it just sort of underlines for me. I don't like the Miami circuit either much. I mean, there are a couple places where they've added sort of parking lot, medium speed corners, that type of thing, but overall, it's I would just go back to the racetracks that are F1 specific. It's give us more Spa. Go back to Mandicourt or Hockenheim.
Laguna Seca. Go to Laguna Seca.
Yeah. Even if they're there.
I mean, there are probably 20 tracks in the United States. At least 20 tracks in the United States. They could get FIA approved for F1.
Like Road America, I think would even be kind of neat.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that there's this big emphasis on street circuits. Anyways, on to the race. Very interesting first lap with Max spinning and recovering. I found that the strategy was very interesting. Mercedes outdid everyone again with Kimi. There is, like with a street circuit, there's always a safety car. I'm surprised we only had one, which was nice. And LeClerc losing it at the end, that was kind of interesting to see them on the limit that way. And I know Verstappen won the driver of the day and he screwed up with that spin, but I thought he had a great recovery drive. And I'm really impressed by the Red Bull powertrain to come up with that kind of power as a new manufacturer. I know they hired some Honda guys, but really impressive. So I really enjoyed the race. Lots of passing. The top two went away from each other, but that was interesting to see if Norris would capture Kimi. And then at the end, we had all the, Max on those old tires, everyone coming up to pass him, and Max resisting really well and so forth. So just a top, very interesting race for me, especially compared to the sprint. What are your guys' thoughts on the race?
Ferrari in the corners. I mean, I don't know if you saw the graphic that Sam played or showed of Max versus no, it wasn't Max. It was Kimi versus LeClerc, and in all the straights, guess who's way out front? It's it's the Mercedes, and in the corners, every corner, Ferrari just was wiping them off the. So that takes me to again the race and watching them and how easy it is for the Mercedes to pass because they clearly have so much more power. They're able to put so much power down on the road. I don't know how much I like that. I'd rather see it closer but at the same time that Ferrari can corner the way they can, it makes for interesting racing. Yeah. And what Max did was spectacular. For him to recover from that spin. Same with Leclerc. For him to recover from that spin the way he did. That is driving skill. Yeah. It's not luck. That is great driving skill.
Yeah.
I think they had said, I was at Coulthard or somebody had mentioned, I don't know what feed you watch, but to have the presence of mind to get the clutch in, get the car organized for a spin and have it pointing the right way and recover the way that Max did, and I guess also Charles did.
Like this, in nanoseconds, like fractions of a second. Yeah.
So I mean it'd be kind of neat if every race just put Max at the back and just let him make his way through and keep the camera on him. But yeah.
I didn't like the way he was racing for a great part of that race. It's not gentlemanly racing. It's very, very Schumacher-ish. Just, I'm going to hammer through, and you know what? I'm going to screw up your line, and if I smash into you, I smash into you. So you better get out of my way. He had a lot of that today.
Well, he came together with Hamilton in the sprint, and then he had his spin, and there was a couple instances of wheel banging with Max. What happened to was it Russell's front wing at the end? Did he come into contact with the rear of Max's car?
Yeah. Or he clipped his tire.
Yeah. And so I guess I don't know if it's part of a strategy where you need to be fearful when I'm around, and you got to give me. Yeah. Absolutely. So, but I mean, that's kind of, you also need to have, there's a bit of the head game going on.
The school of Michael Schumacher, man.
And Senna.
Right.
Yeah. But it's a terrible circuit, but we had good racing, which is nice. I'm going to give this event a green flag, even though I didn't enjoy the sprint. I really enjoyed the race. And for driver of the race, it's Kimi again. This is 3 races he's won in a row. It's reminding me a little bit of Marquez's first season, where he was an instant legend and he won the championship right away. Kimi didn't do that right away. I mean, it's F1, it's more difficult, I think. But in his second season, like when I watched Marquez's first season, he gets into Parc Fermé, he takes off his helmet, and there's this little kid beating all these other guys. And it's the same thing with Kimi. Like, he's extraordinary to be able to do this young, this well, this fast. I just think we have a phenomenal, people talk about, if Max leaves, who are people going to follow? I think Kimi is the next big time driver. And I think George Russell is going to have a very difficult time psychologically this season. Do I think he can adjust? Yeah, he can, but Kimi is no joke, and he's not a pushover.
He's going to slow down.
Who's going to slow down?
Who? Kimi. Kimmy. David Coulthire said something very interesting during the event, and he said, "There's something about not having knowledge, about being green, that you can just go out and do it, and there's nothing in my way." And that's very valid. And if you look at all of the greats that have come through, yeah, they start this way. They slow down, then they get wise. Max is a perfect example. I mean, he was just a weapon and crashing out and red mist and horrible. I can see that happening with Kimmy this
Yeah.
year. Maybe not, but who knows? You know, it's that there's that psychological thing too. He seems to be very very grounded. So I hope I'm
Yeah.
wrong.
What are you giving the event flag wise, John?
I'll give it a yellow.
Okay.
I thought that there were some penalties that should have been laid, which I'm not even going to enter into talking about. I thought there was a lot of whinging, and maybe some of it's because of the broadcast, and passes happening that they'd say, "Oh, look, that's just happened," and not showing it, and then coming back and showing
Yeah,
it.
that was
Yeah.
The coverage of passing could have been a lot better, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
What about driver of the event?
Colapinto.
Oh yeah, got his
He's in
race.
an Alpine. Where did he finish? 8th. Yeah.
8th. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, phenomenal in that Alpine. Good for him. Didn't hear anything about him. Didn't get his nose dirty. Kept it clean, and yeah, good for him. He's a young
Charlie,
guy.
what
He needs
about
to prove himself.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought he was dangerous, but he's proving me wrong. I mean, there's a little bit of contact in the sprint, was it? But, nothing nefarious. So, Charlie, what are you giving the event in terms of flag?
About midway, I was thinking, okay, I'm getting a little bit bored with this, but then I got towards the end, it really got interesting, and so I'd go with a green flag for this one, and I'll go with the Dutch people and say Max. I enjoy watching him having to cut through the field. It's I know Max does it his way, but I mean, we were talking about this earlier that one of the points of the whole sport is drama. I mean, it's what it but why do we watch sports essentially, and so he always puts on a show, so that was kind of neat. So yeah, I'll go with Max.
Right, we have Canada
that
next.
last section, what happened to LeClerc's car that he
Nobody
slowed
knows.
down?
Nobody knows. It was definitely mechanical. It was probably something to do with suspension because if you looked at how he spun, there was no.
Oh yeah, he brushed the wall.
But there wasn't any. No, I don't think there's more to it than that, because his first spin where he went into the wall, if you look at it, he wasn't overcooking it, and he didn't get on the power too early. So there's no reason for him to spin. Could be that the tires were gone. I don't know, but whatever it was car related, not driver related.
But that last little bit at the finish line was, is Max going to get past them? Is Charles going to make it? Russell got past in the corner before. So, I mean, that's kind of interesting. And you notice how reliable these cars are, though, now? Like, it's just, I almost want to see a couple DNFs just to kind of mix things up a bit, but it's not like the 90s or earlier.
Whatever happened to oil being dumped on the track, or cars on fire? I mean, we haven't seen anything good like that for a while.
I guess the Audi tried to do that, but that was before the race even started.
Yeah.
So
So Canada is next. Fairly, I mean, it's a heavy braking circuit, and so there's a lot of long straights, not too many chicanes. So, and Mercedes is bringing an update to their car, so really interesting to see how that develops, and it'll be the second race under these adjusted rules. Post race, there weren't too many comments about the adjusted rules, saying the driver said it was better. There's still some room for improvement, so we'll see if they adjust them a little bit more. But again, since 2017, my enjoyment of F1 has plummeted and been varied. But this season, I've enjoyed every race, so really happy, and hopefully Canada's good.
Hopefully.
So we'll talk to you then.
Thanks, Rob.
Okay.
Thanks, Charlie.
Cheers.
Thanks, Rob.
Bye bye.